Hey, Lori, come here, please.
Okay, Mr. Hamker, you're not muted. All right, Ms. Chisholm, if you want to start, that'd be great.
Sure. Andrea Chisholm, filling in for Todd today, representing the department.
Is your mute off?
Where is it?
Down at the bottom. Click that.
Your Honor, I hate to interrupt, but this
Speaker's turned on.
Judge, can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can hear Mr. Hamker both.
Okay.
No, without. Um, yeah, you may. Otherwise, we're probably gonna have to go to settings and try to figure it out. But
We can hear you all. Can you hear us?
How do I get it on my phone?
you've got your Zoom somewhere down, or hit join meeting. Do you not have the app on your phone?
Thought I did.
Mr. Hamker, can you hear me?
Go to the. Do you actually have an app though?
Okay, obviously not. All right, Mr. Sherrod.
Randy Sherrod, on behalf of Matt Lazaro, we're present. I would like to get him released pretty early so he could go back to his work today. Basically, they had contacted me and said they needed him back today for something that they had him lined up to do.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
You can go ahead and leave.
Joel Jackson, on behalf of Enrique Mendoza, present ready, Your Honor.
All right, and Ms. Zavala is present. She's attempting to get in by telephone, I think, and Mr. Hamker is also present. His client is present. I don't know whether he can hear me now or not. Mr. Hamker, can you hear me?
I can't hear.
I don't know what.
Hello.
Okay, Ms. Zavala, we got you. Mr. Hamker's having a problem, so we're trying to get his issue resolved. I don't know, because I show he's connected and
That's what I call her and ask her if I could just call in, get a number.
Yeah, I've emailed him the phone number already.
okay.
What should be on that piece of paper?
Judge, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I can't hear any of you. I'm going to try on my phone.
Mr. Hamker, I can hear you.
You are unmuted.
Your Honor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
What, Lori? I'm sorry, Judge. I don't know what the problem is.
Well, we got lots of folks having problems this morning, it seems like, so. Okay. We've made announcements, and for those of you who are having technical problems, I have announced for you and your clients. So, Ms. Chisholm, is Ms. Campos our worker this morning?
Yes, she is.
All right, Ms. Campos, what do we have new since your court report was filed?
Nothing really new. Everything on the court report has been mentioned to everybody. So nothing really new. The kids are doing good. Ezra has started seeing Pace Lawson. I think I put that on there in the court report. And he has kind of gotten through with her and stuff like that. But other than that, there's really nothing new other than what was on the court report.
What do you mean by he's gotten through with her?
Like he has made progress with her. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I meant progress.
Okay. All right. Okay, and then what's this? Do we still have services to be worked by Ms. Ortega?
No, she has completed all of her services. So she doesn't have anything else to work.
All right, and do we still have concerns for the children's safety and health and well-being to be returned home?
Yes, it was brought to my attention that Sierra had been around Matthew and stuff like that. There was a picture floating around that I had came across. And so I feel like that if she is still involved with him, the kid's safety is a big concern.
Do we know the date of that photograph?
November 30th, I believe.
Okay, and I read in the court report that the children encountered her with Mr. Lazaro at church. Is that
Well, he was not at church. She made a plate for him, and she said, "Let's make a plate for your dad." And after that, it threw Ezra into a an anxiety attack. She started punching the air, screaming, crying, saying that her chest felt heavy, and like her emotions couldn't be stabilized. So she was taken to the psych hospital and was assessed, and they did say or they did offer her outpatient, and she refused. She didn't want to do that. And so they did diagnose her with severe PTSD, and mom and dad are triggers.
okay? But the children didn't have actual contact with him.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay.
It was just mentioned.
All right. And have you spoken with her about that?
No, ma'am, I have not.
Have any of the therapists talked to her about that?
PACE is working with her on that. I didn't want to push the issue. I did whenever I visited them. She did kind of open up to me about visits, and she said that they make her sad. And so I asked her, why do they make you sad? And she really couldn't give me like an explanation on why they make her sad. She has not been going to visits, but here yesterday I actually did watch the visit on Zoom, and she attended and said that she was going to try and do visits with mom.
Okay, I guess let me clarify my question. My question is has the child's counselor had any contact or discussed with Ms. Ortega the ramifications of like this event? Talking about him to them.
No, ma'am.
Is she still actively engaged in any kind of counseling?
No, ma'am, she's not.
Okay, well, it seems like that would be a topic for some family therapy. If
We
participate.
We did reach out to Delois Hinders because that's who they were seeing for family therapy. And she said that they had not seen them since August, I believe. And we did recommend that they continue family counseling.
All right, we'll find out if anybody has any objection to that, but it seems like that might be appropriate, at least a session or two. Okay. All right, anything else from St. Francis then?
No, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Hamker?
Ms. Campos, have you visited with my client about these concerns that you've brought to our attention in your testimony here today?
No, sir, I have not.
And why not? Why would you put those in a report without asking the other person's side of what you've just repeated?
My supervisor actually sent an email about the concerns, and I believe Sierra was in the email.
You believe that? But you've got a phone, right?
Yes.
And she stays in contact with you, it says in your report.
For the most part, yes.
Okay. And why did you not contact her if it raised you this type of concern? Let me ask you this. In your report, you say that my client does not have a job. You say she doesn't have a car. Is that correct?
Yes, at that time she did not have a job. She she had not been working at Amazon. She does have a job now, and she recently just got a car.
Okay. You think it might be important to the court to know that those two things are no longer correct in your report? She's going to go to work for Lowe's. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And she's had the car. In fact, she's been driving the car to visits, hasn't she?
Was not aware of that. I was not aware of that.
You're not aware that CPS has seen the kids looking in the car, she's getting in and out of the car. Have they not told you that or entered it into their records that she was driving her own car?
I was not.
Yes, ain't seen them together and had the pictures and the photos.
I was not made aware of the vehicle until maybe a week ago.
Okay. Okay. So has a car, has a job. Now, your concerns about the photograph of her in the neighbor's bar. Okay. Did you contact the neighbor's bar owner to see how frequently she comes to that bar?
No, sir.
Okay. Would it surprise you that in 2023, she's been to the bar 3 times?
I mean,
Do you think that's an excessive amount of times to go to a bar 3 times?
no.
I don't either. If Matthew comes into the same bar she's in, is there a court order that says she has to leave?
No, sir.
And there's no law that I'm aware of that says that a gentleman who's the father of 3 of a lady's children couldn't buy her a beer, is there?
No, sir.
Did you contact my client and ask her side about the plate at the church, the plate of food?
No, sir.
Could it possibly have been that plate of food was for her to take home?
It was mentioned that she said that let's fix a plate for your father.
Yeah, but you weren't there, were you?
No, sir, I was not.
Okay, so you don't really know what the conversation was.
No, sir.
And with respect to the anxiety attack that this young girl went to the psychiatric hospital for, do you think the incident at school had anything to do with that?
There could be a lot of factors that made her have an anxiety attack.
Have you told the court about the incident at the school where she was, she wasn't kicked out of school, but she was put in detention, wasn't she, or some type of?
Was not made aware of that, so
Okay.
I'm not sure. I can't answer that.
You're not aware of the altercation between her and a young man at the school?
No, sir.
Okay. The caretaker didn't provide you with that information?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
Oh, since you don't know when that happened, I assume you don't know whether or not it was the same day she was placed in the psych pavilion or not, do you?
Correct. I don't know.
Has the caretaker advised you that they want the children to return to their mother?
We have discussed, but they have not said that they want the kids to return to their mother.
They haven't told you they think it's time for them to go home?
No, sir.
Okay. And you're to sum this up, you say Miss Lazaro has completed all of her classes at Hope Choice and has provided you a certificate for that?
Yes, sir.
And she's attended all of her counseling with Timothy Elvison and complied with that request by the department?
She did not complete counseling with him.
Okay, it says here that she's completed all 6 sessions. Is that incorrect in your report?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, sir. And she wanted more, and then she wanted to go to Dolores. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay. And then she started with Dolores, and she's even expressed to you that she would like to do individual counseling, hasn't she?
Yes, and she was supposed to have set that up with Dolores, and it was set up from my understanding, but she never attended, as far as I know.
Maybe you think maybe she didn't attend because you all decided you all weren't going to pay for that?
We never, I don't believe we said that we weren't going to pay for it.
Really?
I believe that we put in a thing for her to go to counseling.
Has she completed all her family plan of services throughout the life of this case?
Yes, sir.
And has she completed her rational behavior therapy in as well and provided you with a certificate?
Yes, sir.
And Has she completed her sexual abuse education class with Troy Timmons?
Yes, sir.
She provided your certificate for that?
Yes, sir.
And she's been coming to visits in her car?
Recently, yes, sir.
Okay. And so to reiterate, she's done everything the department's asked her to do.
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Jackson?
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Campus, I'm looking at your report here. I represent Mr. Mendoza and said that he's been making his virtual visits with Absidy, correct?
Yes, sir. He contacts her through the phone.
I'm sorry?
He contacts her through the phone.
Okay. And you reported here that there were no concerns in the relationship as father and daughter has progressed.
Correct.
Okay. And then when I go to the end of your report, it says it would be beneficial for Mr. Mendoza to be able to continue a parent-child relationship with Absidy if she is reunified with Miss Lazaro. Are
Right.
you all not considering at all placing this child with a non-offending parent?
We have not looked into that, no, sir.
Why not?
I can't answer that.
But Mr. Mendoza is working his services, correct?
He has done parenting classes and that's it. He was in individual counseling. I did reach out to Mr. Malum and he had not seen him in quite some time. And he has not, but he has maintained stable housing and work, but he has not completed counseling or any other service required.
Okay. If you recall, we started asking about requesting services back in December of 2022. And we weren't able to get services started through the department until January of 2023. Okay. And so he had reached out to you all for those services, but that didn't start happening until here just recently. And so, but he is maintaining stable housing and he's done that throughout the case, right?
Yes, sir.
He's maintained stable employment.
Yes, sir.
And he has transportation.
Yes, sir.
And he's completed his OSAR.
Yes, sir.
Said he hadn't completed a psychosocial. Has the necessary forms been sent over to the Jennings group for him to do that?
He was, Mr. Malum was actually supposed to do that. I can reach out to him and see if he did it. I haven't received anything.
Has you had reported that Mr. Mendoza has maintained a social support system with family and friends.
Yes, sir.
So what more, or is it, what more does Mr. Mendoza, the non-offending parent, need to do to try to have this child placed with him? He's not even being considered at this time.
I would really like him to finish counseling and maybe do some counseling with Absidy. I mean, their relationship was strained. I mean, from what I've been told. So, I think that, maybe she has some questions and she doesn't know how to ask, or, I think family counseling also would be good.
Okay. But at the same time, you're reporting that their relationship has progress, right?
It has. I mean, she attends visit and I've asked her, do you enjoy visiting your dad? And she said yes.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Have they had any face-to-face visits?
No, ma'am. Besides the one when he came down here for the first court hearing, I believe.
And she's placed with an aunt, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Mendoza is obviously wants to say something. So Mr. Mendoza, if you'll unmute.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to speak about the whole counseling situation. I've been trying to get a hold of this Derek Milliam guy ever since this whole thing started. It's been 4 or 5 months. I talked to him in a few classes, and then after that, he just quit sending me emails, responding to me. I got confused on who I needed to talk to because there was a Derek Milliam, a person named Chris Starr, and you know, when I talked to them, nobody ever reached back out to me either. Nobody reached back out to me and was like, hey, here's another scheduled class. Or even I emailed Mr. Milliam and I was like, when can we continue? And I never got no response back. And that's how this has been during this whole case, this whole situation, from OSAR classes to parenting classes to the counseling. I couldn't get no kind of help, no kind of referrals. I called Mrs. Compost. I called the St. Francis, lived voicemails. I had to get real upset with people, and I couldn't get no help, but I tried as much as I can to get everything done. But I just wanted to let it be known that it's been very difficult trying to get these classes and everything from St. Francis. It's been a hot mess with them. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, we're gonna kick it straight to Ms. Martinez, who's the supervisor. Got any ideas on how we straighten out this mess?
Your Honor, so I was the one who helped Mr. Mendoza set up his OSAR assessment. And I have been following up with Mr. Milam. He has mentioned that he hasn't heard from Mr. Mendoza. We did send the 2054 to him, so that he could continue with his counseling, but we can follow up with him and make sure that he makes contact with him again.
If he's had no contact with Mr. Mendoza so far, why do we not just bypass this guy and let's go somewhere else?
So we will try to utilize another, I just went blank, another therapist who does virtual, so that we can pay for the therapy ourselves.
Let's do that.
Okay. And then for the App City situation, App City has not mentioned wanting to reunify with her father. She has been very adamant about wanting to have a relationship with him, but we can explore it with her therapist, because Ms. Campos did express that, they didn't have a relationship for many years. So we can utilize the therapist to see where they're at with that.
So it sounds to me like what we really need to be concentrating on here is family therapy between Absidy and her dad, not necessarily her dad being in individual counseling. I mean, nobody's raised any concerns to me that is indicative that he's in desperate need of individual counseling. We're running out of time. Whether the child ends up being placed with him or not, or whatever the final outcome is, we need to be working on that father-daughter relationship. And it's difficult to do long distance. Everybody knows that. But, I'm going to waive the requirement in Mr. Mendoza's service plan for individual counseling. I've seen not one red flag that's really necessary. What we need to focus on is between he and the child in the time that we have remaining.
Yes, Your Honor. And I will get with her therapist right after this.
So to be very clear, Ms. Rees, I want something in this order that makes it clear that he is no longer required to attend or complete individual counseling.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, Mr. Sheridan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Campos, just a very few questions. What's the purpose of going through all of these different counselors, all these different programs with the mother of the children?
To help with family reunification and the relationship between the children and the mother and father.
Well, and I understand that, but I also understand she's been doing a very good job, except the red flag comes up if she has any communication or she's ever around the father of the children. Now, my concern is, are you saying that for my client's lifetime that Sierra should never have any contact with him? Because you understand they're still married. I mean, a divorce has been filed. No violation that I've seen about her allowing him to be around the children. It would appear that the department says that it's better not to mention the father or the mother under some circumstances, because according to one of the counselors, this triggers, and I don't know what triggers means, to be honest with you. Does trigger mean that the child may say, well, when am I going to be able to see my father? When are we going to be able to be back as a family? I really don't understand. What's your understanding of the phrase triggers as used by the counselor when the mother and father are mentioned?
So trigger to me is something that sets off as an anxiety attack, some like a name that's mentioned or an event that's mentioned or something like that. It triggers something in, I guess, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, so I mean, it triggers something in your brain, I'm assuming, and it just makes you have a panic attack, an anxiety attack, or, you know, whatever the case may be. That's what I understand a trigger is.
The trigger could be like in the report somewhere I read where one of the children said, when am I going to be able to see my father again? Correct? And it seems like these children are going backwards because these triggering effects weren't in effect until they go through all this counseling and CPS basically takes control of their life. It would appear that as good as Sierra has done, that the one red flag to you is she should never be around him. I haven't seen an order saying that she can't be, but you indicate that indicates the children are not safe, even with all these hours and hours and hours of expert counseling to teach her how to keep the children safe if they're around their father. So it just seems inconsistent to me that you can comply with all these conditions. You can have additional counseling set up, even though you've gone through the mandatory part that was originally set up. It just seems like it's a constant attempt by CPS to say, you need to divorce him. And I don't know that that's what you're required to be looking at. Is that basically what you're saying? Because originally the recommendation is you need to get a divorce from him, correct?
I don't believe that was our recommendation,
Well,
that she needed to be divorced from him.
I can tell you at one
went-
time,
Sorry.
one time when I was representing her, that was an indication that was brought up by a CPS worker. Now, the triggering again, I'm assuming if the children get upset, because, you know, counselors use these phrases where they really don't have to tell you the details of what they say the triggering result is. Could that be a situation where the children get upset because they're no longer a family unit with their mother and father?
I mean, it could be.
So with all the counseling and all the good that Sierra's done, you still indicate that the fact that she sees him, meets him at a bar, happens to have a beer bought by Matt, that any contact with the father, I guess until they're adults, would indicate that all this training that you've done has not been successful and taught her how to protect the children when the father's around. Correct?
I mean, yes. I know that there is no order saying that she can't have any contact with him or anything like that, but the children safety is our concern. I mean, you know, so if that's the case, you know, and you know, he is seen with the children, you know, I mean, that's a big concern.
Well, I don't know. How do you know that? I mean, because again, the purpose of all this counseling is to train to get family unification, or at least that's one thing you put in there.
Right,
Unification could also be back with the father and Sierra if they decide to stay together. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But again, your position is that all this training doesn't do any good, because if she's going to go ahead and just casually see him, maybe see him and talk to him about the children, any contact with him just shows that none of that counseling has worked, in your opinion.
No, I don't. I believe that it's worked in some, but I do believe that there's still issues that needs to be worked out between the girls and Sierra.
Well,
And that's the whole part of family therapy.
you know, even when the allegations were made that he was violating the order and seeing the children weren't going through these anxieties and everything that we're dealing with now, correct?
Correct.
So after all this counseling, all this telling the parents what to do and what to not to do, all this counseling to get the children where they can go back with the parents, supposedly, all this counseling does nothing but basically cause them to regress. Isn't that what that appears like now?
No, I feel like that they didn't know how to work through their emotions. And so PACE is helping them work through their emotions and talk this stuff out. Whereas before they didn't know how to express them, their children.
They
And
had
they
a
didn't feel
life
safe. You know,
before they had a life where they weren't having to go to the pavilion. They were having a life where the child, the oldest daughter, was being interviewed, said nothing had happened between her and her father. And after all this counseling, this starts coming out. So now the counselor says, well, it's been established that he did this with the older daughter. Now the younger child doesn't want to see him, when all of this was not present before your involvement. It just looks like the sole role of CPS has been negative with these children. I don't understand why all this counseling with all these different people and all these costs.
Objection, Your Honor. Is there a question?
I'm sorry?
Sustained. Mr. Sherrod, I'm not sure if you're testifying or if you're questioning her as an expert. She's not a counselor. I don't think it's her field of expertise, but no one's objecting to that. So if there's a question, let's ask a question.
I thought it was on some of those, Judge.
Well, you were on some things, but I think we've had a lot of what your take on this is. So,
Okay. Well, I'm sure you don't want to hear that. I'll apologize for that. I'll pass the witness so you can go ahead with your proceeding.
all right. Well, if you have any other questions for her, that's fine. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I don't know if you heard me. I said I don't have any more questions. I'd pass the witness so you could go ahead with your proceeding.
Okay. All right, then, Ms. Zavala.
Ms. Campos, at the last hearing, Sarah was ordered to drug test. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
At the last hearing, Sierra was ordered to drug test, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And those results were provided. Before this hearing, was she asked to UA and hair follicle?
Yes, ma'am.
But it's my understanding that for some reason the lab either only performed the UA or only gave the results for the UA. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you requesting a hair follicle on Ms. Lazaro today?
Yes, ma'am.
And would you ask that she be there before 4 o'clock today?
Yes, ma'am.
The older two girls had not had a visit with mom in a little bit over a month. Is that correct? Before yesterday?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was because they were choosing not to have those visits.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And Azrae specifically stated that she was not going to the visit because of what happened at the church.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Now, since that time, Azrae has participated in a virtual visit and also plans to be there for the visit tonight, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that your understanding? Is it your understanding that Azrae's position is, I feel like mom's trying, I'd like to give her another chance?
Yes, ma'am.
So both older girls should be at that visit tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
The fact that Sierra said, hey, we're going to make your dad a plate, and that threw Azrae into a tailspin that stopped visits for an entire month. Do you believe that would require us to work on that issue in family therapy?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that an indication that Sierra still needs to work on communication with the girls?
Yes, ma'am.
This whole removal was based on Sierra not believing the outcry first that was made by Absidy and now the outcry that's been made by Azrae.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
And it was not until just a few months ago that she even told her therapist, oh yeah, now I believe it.
Yes, ma'am.
So after Azrae was so upset that the mention that mom was taking a plate of food to dad, mom still
Your
went
Honor,
out
I
to dinner
object.
for a
Those
date
questions are
night.
based upon hearsay.
Overall, Ms. Vala, you can continue your question.
Okay, mom still went out for a date night even after that church visit with dad.
Yes, ma'am.
And the picture that you saw was posted on the Neighbors Bar Facebook page, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It came directly from them.
Yes, ma'am.
It was dated.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I forwarded to all council ad items Exhibit 1. I also forwarded it to Rachel. And I would ask that that be admitted.
Your Honor, I object to the extent that it's irrelevant. Ms. Camp already testified they have no problem with she has no problems with her seeing the biological father. Told Mr. Sherrod that.
I'll admit it. I mean, it's for what it is. It's a picture of them together having some beer, and you know, that's the only conclusion the court's going to draw from it.
Your Honor, I'm just going to object to it because she said she submitted that to council. I don't believe we received that.
I just emailed it just a few moments ago.
Oh, okay. If you'd clarified that. I haven't seen
Sorry.
it.
You want time to look at it?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
That's all it is. I think
I'm gonna admit it for the purpose that it shows them together, obviously in a bar or somewhere where they're having beer or a drink or whatever. Okay.
As to Mr. Mendoza, I know that they've been having some virtual visits that seem to go well, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I know there has been lots of talk over these different hearings about getting them in-person visits. Why hasn't that happened yet?
I believe Mr. Mendoza had said that he was, after our last hearing, that he was going to be coming to Amarillo, and there was going to be a in-person visit set up, and he never came, from my understanding.
Okay, and but the department or St. Francis has no objection if he's able to get here and to have an in-person visit.
No, ma'am.
Okay, and the concern about Mr. Mendoza was simply that for years and years, and whoever's fault that was can be debatable, but for years and years they really didn't have much contact.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But Absidy would be interested in an in-person visit if that could happen.
Yes, ma'am.
So while we're working on that relationship, family therapy between them could be helpful for them.
Yes, ma'am.
I pass witness.
Okay.
May I recross, Your Honor?
Yes, you can ask her some more questions.
Ms. Campos,
I'm not sure if St. Francis's attorney has even had a chance to go. I don't know.
Well, she wasn't called as a witness, folks. This is a review hearing. You know, I mean, that's all we're doing. So she's not really even been called or sworn in. So, Ms. Chisholm, do you have any questions you wish to ask your worker?
Just a couple. What is your primary concern regarding mom's contact with Mr. Lazaro?
That she would allow him to be around the kids. I mean, that's my concern.
Okay. And being around the children would be a danger. If Mr. Lazaro was around the kids, that would be a danger.
Yes.
Okay. And is there a therapist recommendation that the children not have visits with Mr. Lazaro?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And it's my understanding that Ezra began having nightmares after finding out that mom had contact with dad. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you asking the court today to order family counseling for Absidy and her father, as well as the other children, all of the children with their mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Hamker, what questions do you have?
I did not see, and I appreciate Ms. Zavala bringing it up. There was nothing in your report about this UA that you had ordered. What was the results of the UA?
So the results of the UA were negative.
So negative, not positive?
Correct.
Is there a reason why you didn't put that in your report for the court to see, or the reason you didn't testify to it till now?
I had already submitted the court report before we had sent her to do the UA and hair follicle.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing out the fact that it was negative. With respect to Mr. Sherrod's questions to you, isn't it true that there is no medical or psychiatric evidence in the file of any type other than after St. Francis started managing this case of these children having emotional problems?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
So you agree with me, they didn't start having meltdowns, anxiety attacks, and nightmares until after they were taken from the home that they'd lived their whole life in?
Objection, Your Honor. That calls for speculation. She would have no way of knowing that.
Sustained.
Have you seen any evidence of that?
No, sir.
Okay. Am I correct that there have been no convictions of any type against Mr. Lazaro regarding any of these children?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
And am I correct that there are no ongoing cases against Mr. Lazaro regarding any of these children?
I'm not aware of that, sir.
And am I correct that never at any time have you ever claimed that my client, Mrs. Lazaro, did anything to any of these children?
She's not the perpetrator, but she's no.
She's not a perpetrator, correct?
Correct.
So the answer to my question would be yes, there's nothing she's done to harm these children that you have any factual knowledge of.
Correct.
Okay. And you testified earlier that she's done everything that the department has told her to do.
Yes, sir.
And how old is this case now?
Almost a year and a half old.
Okay. And am I correct, based upon your answers to Mr. Sherrod, that as long as my client is alive and has any contact with the biological father, it's St. Francis's opinion that she should never get her kids back? Is that right?
No, that's not the case. Like I said, there's nothing that says she cannot have contact with him.
Okay, so well, you know what? I pass the witness, Your Honor. No more questions.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Campos?
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Just a reminder to everybody, this is just a review hearing. So I'm going to order that, as said earlier, individual counseling is not going to be part of Mr. Mendoza's service plan. The focus needs to be on family therapy between he and his child, Absidy. I will order Ms. Ortega to submit to a hair test today before 4 p.m. I'm going to order continued family therapy between Ms. Ortega and the children. I'll find that there's a continuing danger to more really not physical safety of the children, but I think the emotional well-being of the children to return home today. There's obviously still some things that are upsetting the children. And that's counselors, job to delve into that, but I think the family counseling needs to continue. We'll find that mother is in compliance with her service plan. I think Mr. Mendoza is in compliance with his service plan. You know, I will find that Mr. Lazaro has complied with as much as his attorney will allow him to comply with the outstanding allegations. You know, we've already addressed that in prior hearings. So I'll continue the department, excuse me, as temporary managing conservator, and I'm going to continue all of the children's placements. Now, what I've got to know is, are you all relying on the jury request so that we can set that? Because I don't have another date to give you. So if we're setting this for a jury trial, we got to pick a date today and announce that. Ms. Katie has proposed a couple of different times in February. So we're looking at probably February 20th, which is a Tuesday. Our office is closed that Monday, or the following week, February 26th. So that's the big question is, are we going to a jury trial? And my next question is, have you all mediated? Because this court requires that.
Your Honor, I have no problems with February the 26th for the jury trial. I'll be frank. I don't know how a mediation would solve it. I mean, I don't know what else they want my client to do. Under the Texas Supreme Court case, the CJC, there's nothing else you can do.
Okay, so back to the question. Are we relying on the jury request?
Yes, we definitely want a jury trial. I would expect it to last 3 days.
All right. All right, counsel, everybody else weigh in on those dates. Because if we set it, it's going to have to happen then.
Your Honor, the only thing I can say, I've got a whole slew of cases that we're being set on almost weekly. If you give us a setting on that, probably the best day would be the 26th, and I'll try to work around that. But I've got some that may be in jail, and I don't know who would have the priority. But at least if we've got a setting on it, I could try to have the other courts to work around that.
Well, because we have a mandatory dismissal date of March 9th, I can tell you that this one will take priority. And if I need to talk to a different court, I'm happy to do that.
That'll be fine.
But this should take priority. So everybody's going to need to be sure that they're in communication with Ms. Katie about any conflicts so that I can go to the appropriate district court or whoever and work that out with them. But that's a drop dead date, y'all. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying if we pick a date today, that's when it's going to happen. Because we don't have any room to move it.
I could do either, but the 26th seems to work best.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, I haven't heard from you.
Yes, ma'am. I've got some CPS hearings with Judge Graham, but I can get somebody to cover for me on those dates.
Okay.
And I'll have to discuss the time with the jury room, because if other courts have a jury starting, we might not have, or might not be able to start until the afternoon. So I'll have to get an exact time.
Okay.
I have to ask, Judge, if I may, Mr. Hamker, are you the attorney that filed the jury fee?
I'm not in my desk where all that stuff is. I believe one's been filed, and
Yes, you filed it originally, objected to me, and you withdrew that objection subsequently. But it was Mr. Hamker's request. So I'm relying on his request and also then his waiver of that objection. Okay, so it sounds like the 26th.
Your Honor, if you would, could I ask you to put Mr. Sheridan, Mr. Hamker, and I into a breakout room? You can go ahead and move on to your next hearing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, folks. I've got lots of folks waiting. So, Mr. Mendoza, you have a quick question? Yes.
Okay, so I've been at my job for a year now, and I just got my insurance, and I don't know if this is the proper time to ask. I've been talking to my attorney about it, but I want to know if I can put Absidy on my insurance so that way she can have things paid for dental, vision. Not
You don't
yet.
you don't need to worry about that. Well, she's covered with the Medicaid right now. That's Star Health.
Okay.
So you don't need to do that at this point in time.
Okay. Okay.
And
All right.
Mr. Mendoza, while I've got you here, if you would call my office after this hearing and set up a telephone consultation with me, we need to talk.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then everything I've ordered already, and plus then I'll see everybody on February 26th for a jury trial. Miss Katie will let you know whether we'll start in the morning or whether that'll be in the afternoon. And we will schedule on 3 full days. Hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. And we're live streaming. Miss Taylor is making our record. And thank y'all for your patience. I'm sorry we got very far behind on their first cases on the docket this morning, so I appreciate your patience. Okay, we'll take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Jennifer Campos is my permanency specialist. We are present radio.
Lorraine Lucero on behalf of the mother, Lisa Cortez, Your Honor, we're both present and ready.
Jay Michelson on behalf of the father, we're present and ready.
Stacey Zabala on behalf of the kids here and ready.
Okay, what do we have new, Ms. Campos?
The kids are doing well. Isaiah has progressed a lot. They got his walker in to help him walk. He is starting to pull up on things and trying to learn how to walk and all of that. Yazalina is doing very well in the home. Parents are doing extremely well. And I am looking to reunify Isaiah on Friday.
Okay, great. And Yasmin has already been home for a while, so.
Yes, ma'am.
No concerns there, no problems it looked like in your report.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. And then once we get Isaiah moved home, then we'll continue to monitor for a while, make sure the family's getting what they need. They don't need any extra help from us, that kind of thing, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Ms. Lucero.
Your Honor, I don't have anything to add, just that the parents, well, Miss Cortez, she's my client, doing really well, is happy, the kids are, well, the oldest child already placed the other child coming, and I just want to let her know that I'm proud of her and how hard they've worked, and I hope that things continue to go well for them.
Okay. Mr. Michelson?
I have no questions. I'm really proud of the parents. I think they're doing really well.
Okay, and Ms. Zavala?
Your Honor, no questions, just a report regarding visit. I got to visit when Isaiah was here for a home visit with parents. Parents are currently living with Maricela, who was placement for Yazalina. The home is very appropriate, has big, nice, wide places so that that walker for Isaiah should fit well. Isaiah seemed very comfortable with all 3 of the adults in the home. And I actually see it as a benefit that they are in the home right now with Maricela. It's just more hands on deck. And it seemed to be a situation where everybody was working very well as a team. It did not strike me as a situation where parents were there and expecting Maricela to do stuff. I mean, it clearly was parents were there with the kids. They were parenting. She was just, the home and an extra set of hands. And I also really got the feeling from all 3 of them that everybody was on board with this plan, that this could be a situation that could last for a while. I told them that from my perspective, I was in no hurry to see them have to locate their own place. as long as they are working, they're saving, they're getting ready for that if and when they need to do that. But for me, it actually gave me a little bit more, Isaiah's going to be a hands-on baby. And so the more appropriate and safe hands that he's comfortable with, the better from my perspective. So I see no hurry in making that change, and I'm on board with the reunification. I do think we need to monitor. We need to make sure they're getting everything they need to. We need to make sure all that medical is continued, but they seem ready to do that. And I'm glad to see us moving there.
Okay. Sounds like everybody is on board with the plan, including me. So I'll continue the department as temporary managing conservator and continue, of course, Yazalina's placement with parents, and I'll approve the reunification and the move of Isaiah to the home. And our next hearing will be on April 30th of 2024. That'll be a 9 o'clock docket.
And Judge, since we're going to do extension on this one, the new deadline would be July 12th of 24.
Okay, hang on, let me.
Okay.
All right, July 12th.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, thank you.
And a final would be set on July 9th.
Yes. We've got that scheduled for July 9th at 9 o'clock. Or 9 o'clock docket.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me, but I can't remember. Have I already signed the extension, or did we just, everybody was just in agreement?
We agreed to it. I don't think, I will get it filed today if we haven't filed the extension order, but we.
All right. Then let me just do, as far as that's concerned, I will find that extraordinary circumstances exist to extend the case. And we'll extend it, set the new dismissal date of June 12th of 2024.
July 12th.
I'm sorry, July 12th.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank y'all so much. And parents, you guys are doing, keep up your good work. You're really doing fantastic.
Thank you, Judge.
Today for our adversary hearing, we are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement and consent of the parties. We are live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, we'll take announcements.
Daniel Trial for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready to hear.
Vince Nowak on behalf of April Wagner. We are both present and ready, Judge.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Isabella.
Okay, thank you. I don't know how far we're going to get into things. I am concerned just knowing what I know from the affidavit that was presented to me. We could get into some pretty sensitive areas concerning the child, and since we're live streaming, I don't know whether we're going to really get into all that. If there's an agreement between mom and the department, we may not.
I don't really plan on it, Your Honor, but there could be a question or two that we need to ask that we may not want on YouTube. So if we could, I would make a motion if we could go off.
No objection, Judge.
No objection at all.
All right. Okay, then I'm going to temporarily close the courtroom for the duration of this particular hearing to protect the confidentiality and privacy of the child and what I believe are going to be some health related issues. So we are here today. I'll stop the live and that I will resume it. And also on Ms. Archer's motion to withdraw. Ms. Sapien appeared earlier and reported that she and her client, there was no problem with the review order today. They were in agreement, and her client has also executed a voluntary affidavit of relinquishment of parental rights. So I excused her from waiting and coming back for the hearing, so she was present. But we'll go ahead and take everybody else's announcements now.
Daniel Trial for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Jaleesa Bird is my permanency specialist. We are present, ready.
Natalie Archer for the grandmother and guardian, Tony Helsom.
Stacy Zavala for Luke.
All right, thank you. Okay, and I do not have Ms. Helsom nor Mr. Helsom in the waiting room. They've not logged in at all this morning. we've had to kind of shift things around a little bit, but I have watched the waiting room, and neither of them has logged in at any point in time this morning.
And Your Honor, I don't know if they said it, but Casa's also in here.
Yes. Okay, so I guess Ms. Archer will take up your motion at this time, and then we'll hold our review hearing. So I've seen your motion. If you could just elaborate just a little bit about the problem.
Yes, I have of course, I think my client, she had initially expressed her unhappiness with me at our last hearing, and we were trying to hang in there and get some communication going. But I have tried calling, email, and texting her over the course of the last few months, and she has made it very, very, very clear that she does not wish to communicate with me. I did send her the link to today's hearing as well, and received a nasty reply back to that. So I don't see how we could possibly work together moving forward, even though relinquishment is on the table.
Okay, well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So, Ms. Archer, I'm going to grant your motion to withdraw based on ineffective communication with the mother. I appreciate your service in this case, and I'm sorry that Ms. Helsum did not see the wisdom in keeping you on as her attorney. So, you're in my court often, and I think everybody here knows you do a very fine job. And but I also understand why you need to do what you need to do. So I'll sign the order, and you'll be excused, and we'll go ahead and proceed with what we need to do on our review hearing. And I appreciate your patience this morning.
Well, thank you, Judge, and I appreciate the patience of you and all the parties in waiting for me. I'm sorry I got delayed in Aqua Tree.
No problem. No problem. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. What do we have new then since the court report was filed?
Luke's doing well in placement. He's attending school, making friends. He reports his lowest grade was a 70. So he does well in school. I believe that was one class. The rest were A's and B's. He goes to skills training. He's doing individual counseling. So overall, he's doing well. He does hope to be placed with his aunt that we're doing the ICPC on. So overall, he's doing pretty well in placement and just overall in his placement.
Okay. All right. Very good to hear. Okay. Then Ms. Zavala, anything to add today?
Your Honor, I got to Zoom with Luke. He seems good. His only real concern is wanting to go with Aunt, and so I just reminded him again how those ICPCs work. He is getting regular contact with her, which is great. So we're just in the waiting game. He reports he feels his medication's helping him, and placement is good. So just playing the waiting game, but I've got no concerns about his placement.
Okay.
And Judge, can I ask Ms. Bird a couple of questions real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
Ms. Bird, have you been having issues with contacting with Tony Helsum?
Yes. Anytime I call her phone, it just goes straight to voicemail. It's been like that since the beginning of the case. So I've, just kind of did Facebook searches, or I just been trying to make some type of communication. Casa was able to get an email address. So I just received that a couple of weeks ago. So I do plan to email, but yes, having issues getting in touch with Tony Helsum.
Okay. Are you ever able to text with her and she respond, or does she not respond if you try to text with her?
She does not respond when I text her.
Okay. But you do have a current, as far as you know, a current email address as of the last couple of weeks?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know, I should have asked Ms. Archer before she got off, but she said she had received some replies. Do you know whether those were emails or text or call? Do you know how she was getting in contact with her?
I believe through email. I spoke with CASA, and she was able to get an email address from Miss Archer. And so I believe it's contact's been through email, as Tony has emailed with CASA.
Okay. So hopefully now you have a way to, whether she'll respond to you or not, but a way to get in touch with her.
Yes, and she was in contact with our parent support worker, Deja Moore. And then, once her 90 days on the case was up, we have not heard. St. Francis has not heard from Tony Helson.
Okay. And you understood that Mr. Helson has executed a voluntary relinquishment.
Yes.
You understood that. Does the department want to ask for a early final on this case? Has Miss Tony done anything in the case? It seems to be she's pretty uncooperative.
Yes.
Okay. Are you okay asking for an early final today?
Yes.
Judge, we would ask that this case be set for an early final, just due to the relinquishment and due to the non-cooperation of Miss Tony Helson.
Already in my docket entry.
Okay. I assumed. I just wanted to put it on the record.
Yeah, so I'll announce our date then. Okay, anything else?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, in CASA.
So as Jalissa said, I was able to speak with Grandma over the Christmas break. I originally emailed her and she emailed me back several emails. As Ms. Archer said, they weren't the kindest emails. So then she did text several times and she did express that she did not want Ms. Archer to be her attorney. And the only thing she told me was she wanted to be able to speak to Luke, but I don't think that that's something that Luke wants to do. Other than that, Luke is doing really good in placement. And as I said, he has good contact with his aunt.
Okay, and just to clarify in the record, you referred to her as grandmother, which she is a grandmother, but she's also the adoptive mother.
Yes, yes.
I just didn't want that to be confused. Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Judge, can I ask Miss Stacia a question?
Sure.
Shelby, where is grandmother living right now? And I should have asked Jalissa this. I just forgot to, but
I think
let's refer to her as mom.
Sorry, mom.
Legally she is.
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
The respondent mother, do we know where she lives?
I think she told me Kansas.
Okay. Okay.
She's no longer in Amarillo or Texas, for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Anybody have anything further?
Nothing further.
Okay. Then I will find that there is a continuing and ongoing danger to the child, to return the child to either the home of the mother or the father at this time, and that the department has used reasonable efforts to try to reunify the family. But there's a complete lack of cooperation, and now Mr. Helson has actually executed a voluntary relinquishment. So I will continue the department as temporary managing conservator, and I will continue the child's current placement. I will set this for an early final on April 30th of 2024 on a 9 o'clock docket. And so as stated before, I've granted mother's motion, or her attorney's motion to withdraw, and we will appoint her new counsel based on her original affidavit of indigency in the case. So Ms. Katie, as soon as we've done the withdrawal order, we can go ahead and reappoint. We'll try to get that information to Ms. Helson, and also provide whatever information we have about, mother's email and any of that connection or communication information that we have. Okay. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your patience, and everybody have a good rest of your day. That is the last thing I think on our docket, since both our finals have been moved. So everybody be safe out there.